Battler for the Podcast Music Award every year.
Yes. One day.
One day.
Got it twice, man.
I'll break his knees and you'll get it.
Okay, you're streaming live, just so you know.
What's that?
We're streaming live.
Oh, hi. Everyone out there.
What do your name?
Got a few more minutes. We'll wait for any stragglers.
Good. Yeah, how you been? Alan?
Get going.
I'm feeling blue right now.
OneNote. Microsoft OneNote. And I really like it, except their latest update changed it from Calibri font to this really, like...
Where's Ariel?
It's not quite...
Now you're tuning in to Brian Ibbett talking about his fonts.
We're nerding out on
Welcome to Fonts with Brian Ibbett. From chat.
Calibri, but it's like there's spacing issues that are weird between it. Like, it went from really nice and easy to read like
It does
this.
have weird spacing issues.
Yeah.
It does look weird.
Yeah.
Alright, I like Simple Note.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to that, because then you got notational velocity to sync up with and
Right.
all that.
Just all the amazing.
Did you say notational velocity?
Notational velocity. That's the app on my Mac.
Is it really?
Syncs up with Simple Notes, so that
Okay.
so you can have all your notes in one place.
Yeah, I like Simple Note. I've been using it for a while now.
And all these great tabs like recipes, all weekend
Yeah, they all
buttermilk
have-
pancakes.
That is nice that you can do. You can't do that.
You just copy
We have
it.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
So I just have literally just thousands.
I think they're ready to go. Yeah.
It's all the trivia
You
questions.
guys want to start now?
Everybody's just looking right on us.
5 extra minutes. Okay.
What?
Oh, do we have more people in the habit trail?
No.
Do we go on without them? Okay, all right. We'll go on without. They'll be fine. Or will they?
Far away to come see Veronica Belmont.
Nope.
It's recorded.
What's the name of this panel?
It's
Just getting the
Alpha
official
Geek
name.
Media.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcasting track. How are you guys doing? Good? All right. This is the crowdfunding and making money online with your content panel. In case you want to make sure you're in the right place. I'm the moderator, Veronica Belmont. And first I wanted to get a show of hands of how many people have contributed to a crowdfunding campaign recently. Nice. Thank you. How many people have contributed to any of my crowdfunding campaigns? Thank you. Thank you. So we're here with a panel of creators, and I'm going to let them go down the line and introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the project that they are currently crowdfunding or have crowdfunded recently. Go ahead, start with Brian Ibbett.
Okay, well, hey, I'm Brian Ibbett. I'm host of a show called Coverville and a show called, or co-host of a show called The Morning Stream, which is currently where we're doing a lot of crowdfunding with Patreon. There's an aspect of Coverville that's with this thing called A Member. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's currently what I'm using.
Great.
Hey, I'm Charles McFall, the Rock God of Podcasting, and I do a show with Brian from the Helicarrier. I do another show called Success Freaks, and we actually do most of our income on Patreon, which is an ongoing crowdfunding source.
My name is John Bain, better known online as TotalBiscuit. We run the Cynical Brit YouTube channel, the co-optional podcast on YouTube, and we also use Patreon to crowdfund a series of animated shorts, turning our podcast into a selection of cartoon characters, which surprisingly some people want to watch. I'm trying to figure out why.
My name is Mark Gunn. I'm a Celtic musician and host of the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. And obviously I sell CDs of my own, compilation CDs. But I also got into crowdfunding with a site called Songhenge years ago, which I found was a lot easier to manage through Patreon last year.
So you said you switched over to Patreon?
Yes, I still have Songhenge running, but I have pretty much switched entirely to Patreon. I stopped accepting anyone new through Songhenge.
And I also use Patreon for my show Sword and Laser, which we've been funding for the past year. The podcast itself is 8 years old, but we just started funding for the first time recently. So am I correct to say that all of us use Patreon at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's really interesting because is anyone not familiar with Patreon? So Patreon is as has been mentioned, an ongoing crowdfunding platform. So as opposed to Kickstarter, where you have one single project or thing that you're looking to fund over a certain amount of time, typically between 30 and 60 days, or I think there's some 90 days project that you can do as well. Patreon is ongoing, so people can subscribe to your project at almost any price point, whether it be 50 cents, whether it be $20, and you can choose to do that per episode basis, per weekly basis, per monthly basis, and they can also decide how much money per month they want to contribute to your show. So say they only want to do $1 per episode for 4 episodes and they're only paying $4 a month. You can make more content than that, but they're not going to be charged more for that content. So let's talk about Patreon, because I think, that's really changed the game, especially for podcasters in recent years. We used Kickstarter to do projects for the video show that we did per season, but now, this has really completely changed the game for us. So did you do any kind of funding before? You mentioned the Crowdhinge?
Songhenge.
Songhenge, sorry.
I started that in 2007, and it was an annual. Well, I tried it was an annual fee was the main thing that I did, or a lifetime fee. I think is the way I originally started. Then I went to annual. Then I added monthly, and monthly was all run through PayPal. So you run into the problems of if a PayPal doesn't go through. It says send a message. You have to enter everyone's email address everywhere. It was all handled by me, which wasn't really as good. The thing I like about Patreon is that, number one, you can do the per episode pledges that people do, and people do that. Whereas, so I'm already making more money than I did with Songhenge just because people are donating per episode as opposed to a monthly fee or whatnot. So it's been a brilliant changer.
I think it's the power to the people. When you gave them the ability to say, I only can afford to give you $2 this month, they're not locked into a $19.99 monthly fee or even on Patreon, I'll pledge $1 per show, but I can't afford $4. You get that a lot, surprisingly. So definitely Patreon putting that power in your hands for how you control what you spend changed the game for us. That turned it around very quickly.
Yeah, $4 a month sounds and feels a lot less than $50 a year.
Yeah.
Not to mention
It does.
it does, and not to mention you can cap it too.
Right.
Yeah.
The other element to it is that, unlike Kickstarter, which is essentially paying money for a promise a couple of years down the line, Patreon is paying a small amount of money every month, and you can immediately stop if you realize, well, the ongoing commitments that this Patreon user is claiming that they are going to give us are not actually happening. So that $4 could stop instead of throwing a few $100s. Which, let's be honest, on Kickstarter, when you're throwing an amount of money at a project that's 2 years down the line, you might as well be throwing it onto a gambling table at one point, because the success rate on Kickstarter is not necessarily that high, and many things can happen even if the project is well managed, if it's well prepared, there's a lot of information on it, whereas you don't really have those risks on Patreon.
Right. So is anyone out there looking to fund a project in the near future using Patreon or Kickstarter? Okay. So one of my big questions is, and this is something we've faced on our own podcast, is what do you do to keep patrons happy? Because every month you see this bit of attrition, you see people dying off. You're like, oh man, I've lost $10 worth of my monthly income from people dropping off. You can email them independently and say, hey buddy, what's up, guy? What's up? I just want to know what's going on. That's awkward. So I don't typically go that route. But what do you do to kind of support them and make sure that they feel like they're having input in the content and that they remain happy with what they're contributing to?
It's definitely making them feel like they've got a line that they're actually contributing and not just throwing money at you. You want to make sure that they feel like, oh, he's listening to my suggestions for shows or requests, or he used my email, for this show. Making sure that they feel like they're paying, but they're also keeping your show alive and vibrant.
I think following through with your promises of what things you offer.
Generally a good idea.
Yeah, right.
And that's a tough one too, because a lot of people like to. You start off when you're starting off any of these projects, whether it's Kickstarter or Patreon, you start promising lots of big things, and then afterwards you realize, why the hell did I do that? I can't do that. I cannot. I don't have the time to take care of all that stuff. So it gives you a way to you simplify until finally you manage each time anyone wants something, you can follow through.
Yeah, you've got to watch out for feature creep in particular, even with something like Patreon. It's something that happens a lot on Kickstarter, especially with video game projects with stretch goals. There is, of course, the culture in Kickstarter that you must offer stretch goals almost all the time. And when it comes to games, it often ends up with a project ballooning out of control and then running out of budget or not fulfilling the original vision. With something like Patreon, you still have to watch out for that, because I think there's a real risk that if you do see that drop-off, as you were mentioning, that you think, I have to compensate for that in some way by offering something extra, promising something new, and those little things start to pile on top of each other to the point where you may not be able to manage that, which can be a bit of a problem. To add to that as well, another way that we do crowdfunding, not through Patreon actually, is actually through the Twitch subscriber system that we use, which is effectively crowdfunding in a way. It's a set subscriber fee through the Twitch TV streaming platform, and we use it to provide a selection of set benefits that are listed up front, and the features are actually included in Twitch itself, so we don't have to manage any of that. So we offer things like ad-free viewing, and we've set it up so that the co-optional podcast, which airs live on a Tuesday, goes live on YouTube on a Thursday, but if you're a subscriber, you get the early access to that VOD immediately. So that's something that's guaranteed will happen every episode without us actually having to do anything. And it's really important to be able to offer a tangible benefit that requires a minimum of management on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. What we've done with From the Helicarrier was listen to our audience. So we started off saying we've got to offer something that they can have, but we don't want to ship it. We don't have to manage it. We were lucky enough to have somebody listening to the show who could do artwork. So our show is about Marvel Avengers Alliance, which is a game. So we made collector's cards of all the different Marvel characters with the game stats and the art from the game, and that's all digital content. We thought that's what people are going to want. Then beyond that, they're going to want the stat tracking and all these extra fulfillables that are easy enough to do. Well, it turned out that wasn't what they wanted at all. The bottom line prize was we made this private Facebook group, closed. So you could see it, you just can't get into it. And that's what everybody wanted. Yeah. And that was just our entry-level fee. Any donation, 10 cents a show, will get you into this thing thinking this isn't what they want. They want the bigger thing. And then when that filled, quickly we're like, should we bump that rate up? But then we decided it's about community. And the community went and sold for us. They get into the live chat, and they start talking about, man, my game changed because I was in this group. My strategies changed. And that is what has gone strong. So listening to what the feedback of the community is, had we been able to do that ahead of time, we'd have made that the higher pledge to get into the group, because that would have brought in more money, I think. But as far as managing how to keep them, it has been a little bit of, hey man, your card was declined this month. Right. Just letting you know, you're still. So we made it a 3-month policy. It's like, hey, we'll give you 3 months. Basically, if you're not, it's not fair to everybody else. If you don't, then it was the Google Hangouts. We actually do a Google Hangout just for our Patreons. And we asked them flat out the first time, are you getting enough for your pledge? And unequivocally, they said, yes, we are.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people they're ultimately there to support you. The bonuses are just, they're important, but they ultimately are there to support you and what you're doing and your mission. So if you're creating a mission that is important, is something that's important to them, they stay with you. I have like a level, the basic level. People can listen to get the show a couple days early. It might be a couple days early. Depends on when I actually finish the show. But it's a simple level. But then I have this $5 level, which is basically Songhenge, a continuation of that, a more expensive version of that, admittedly. But that's not, half of them don't even download this free music. Some of the people, they're just like, it's not really what we're doing. We're supporting you. We picked this level because we want to really support your show. And so they're willing to pay the extra money for that, just as well.
Yeah, we found quite similar with the offering of the early VODs that only around a third of the total Twitch subscribers actually take advantage of that service. And it does become a point where they will subscribe to you because they like your content, they hopefully like you, they want you to continue doing what you're doing, and everything else is essentially a bonus on top of that.
Probably the most important thing with regard to something you've been hearing all three of them saying and I'm saying is make sure that the things you're delivering are easy to fulfill. digital.
Digital.
Giving people early access to shows, giving people downloadable music. Don't focus on the tangible. Don't focus on the things you have to mail out, because no matter how much time and energy you think you're going to budget for that, triple it. It's probably the best rule of thumb.
You might end up having a new child, and then all of a sudden you can't do anything.
That's right.
Well, that's actually, you brought up a thing that I was going to mention, and that's
Having a child.
yeah, actually, yes. I'm not, but Amanda Palmer is.
Yes, that's true too.
And she ran into some heat recently because she is having a new baby, and she started a Patreon, and she had got flack from one of her supporters being like, so are you using this money to really create content, or are you just funding your baby? And she was like,
Yes and yes.
And
let
Patreon
me respond to that.
Patreon has a ban user button too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was, there's some concern there too. I mean, maybe not from our communities. I've never gotten any kind of content from or like feedback like that, but I think there is some expectation of where the money's going, and they want to be able to see that what they're spending money on is having an effect, which actually leads me to what my actual next question was going to be, which is, how indebted do you feel to the patrons, and does that ever affect your content? Do you ever feel like you're changing your content in order to make them feel like they're getting more for their money? Or, because Tom Merritt, for example, who runs a very successful crowdfunding campaign for Daily Tech News Show, which is going to be at 4:30 today in the Crystal Ballroom. And he, where was I going with this? I threw in. Yeah, and so and he, when you have that much support, do you ever feel like you have to kind of bend over backwards to make sure that those people are feeling fulfilled? Oh, he calls them basically co-owners. They are the bosses. And when you get to that level of where you're actually calling your funders bosses, how much does that change the actual content? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, to me, that's absolutely terrifying, to be honest. We're very fortunate in the way that we started our podcast through YouTube, and it got large enough to be properly ad-supported and also be attractive to potential sponsors. So the crowdfunding that we ended up using was something that we could use for something a little unusual, something a little bit extra, which ended up being this animated series. And the thing about animation, particularly on YouTube, which is something that animators have struggled with for years, is that YouTube monetization is particularly poor for short video content and irregular video content. And your CPMs end up going down. You end up getting the bottom of the tier of the advertising, which is always terrible. But for advertising, Patreon is fantastic because what people want at the end is a quality product, and it doesn't matter how long it takes to make it. And with something like Patreon, you can fund on a per video basis. So we were able to create the content that we were wanting to create without that time limit. And we didn't really have to bend over backwards for anybody. We didn't have to change anything that we did. And I think in the long run, if you do start to change things, you've got to bear in mind your audience is probably significantly larger than your number of patrons. So even though these people are giving you money, if you compromise the core principles that made your content good in the first place, then that's just going to send you off in a death spiral. And that's absolutely not what you want to continue a successful project long term.
And I think that's a challenge with any artist as well as anything, do you create for your audience, or do you create and your audience comes to you? It's a little bit it's a fine balance. I don't think I've ever really done a whole lot. I've done some shows that for my audience, I didn't, Celtic punk is not my thing, but I have a show that's specifically geared towards the Irish punk crowd because, number one, I found someone to do it who knew that music, but just because you do want to share different sides. For me, I want to share different sides of Celtic music. My mission is to promote independent, small Celtic artists who don't usually have the ability to reach out and share to hear this sort of music. And so I try to stay true to that mission, which I think is much more important than trying to entirely appease your audience. So
A wise man once told me that no good decisions are made by committee. So that's early on in podcasting, I was reaching out to my Facebook audience and saying, what do you want me to talk about this week? And somebody did chastise me. He's like, talk about what you want to talk about and we'll come and listen. And that's true with Patreon, I think, too,
Yeah.
is what everybody's been saying is you make the content, they're supporting the content, And you don't always pull a big audience. I have another Patreon with Success Freaks, and we have one member. But everybody who ever hears about the show, everybody who hears the show, their eyes light up. The tagline is "Help Others Be Awesome." So when you hear that, most people light up, they like it, and yet we can't grab that funding. Well, we didn't worry about it. We talk about it on the show, we promote it, and we just keep doing what we do, and you'll find other ways. And that's something else, when we get to it, I'd like to bring up. There's other ways to make money because of podcasting, but not necessarily because of your podcast.
Yeah, the way to think about it is that show, the show you're producing, got you your patrons. Don't change the show to try and please them, because you might change what they love about the show.
Yeah.
So you just trust the fact that whatever you're doing up to that point was right, and if you keep doing that, you'll continue to be right.
So how has crowdfunding changed things for you? Beyond just the content, maybe you don't change the content at all, but how has it changed it for you as a podcaster?
For me, it definitely has. I mean, the crowdfunding, whether Songhenge or Patreon, they helped to support me. So I am I quit my day job in 2005 to do music full time. That's also when I started my first podcast, first podcasts, plural. But I got started doing lots of podcasts, and as the time has gone on, now the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, it's a significant income source for me, such that if I stopped it, I lose half my income, because music, I don't tour as much. I have a family, I have the little baby, and so it actually, yes, the Patreon does help pay for my baby to eat and whatnot and get dressed, and my daughter to have a life. So it goes hand in hand. It is my job, so as much as anything.
Yeah, for us it was a little different, because the podcast is just a part of a suite of content that we do, and all of that content is monetized either through YouTube or Twitch. And when we got started back in 2010 doing this as a career, it was all ad supported through YouTube, 100%. And since then, the ad market of YouTube has got more unstable, especially over the last 6 or 7 months. CPMs have dropped, fill rate has dropped, ad block use is, of course, on the rise, meaning that crowdfunding becomes important to diversify your revenue streams. It becomes important to become a fallback, essentially, if you have a bad month, and you will if you do ad-supported through Google Ads or any similar system where the CPM is completely outside of your control, where it's not a sponsorship agreement that you yourself have negotiated personally with an advertiser. Crowdfunding, as weird as it sounds, ends up being more reliable. And having that as a fallback is hugely important. It just gives you that safety net, and it gives you that freedom to be creative. Perhaps one month you do want to pursue something that is not necessarily going to do hugely well on YouTube. It's not something that's catering to a large demographic. You want to be specific. You want to do something that's perhaps more importantly than anything a passion project that actually keeps you enthusiastic for working within this industry. And that's perhaps the greatest thing about crowdfunding, is that it enables your passion.
Well, talking about negotiating your own rates with sponsors, that's the best way to go, by the way. CPM
Absolutely.
Kills you in the long run. But that's what Patreon is. You're negotiating rates with your audience. And it's an educational curve. And we had to educate people on our show over and over again about how you, as the patron, have the control. So that's key, is really communicating with your audience constantly. But how many people here actually do a podcast? All right. How many people has your podcast gone on long enough it became a little bit of work? That's what Patreon changes. I have a wife who didn't get it for the longest time. She's like, you just talk to people on the internet. It's weird. And then I hit show 100 of my first show and had people fly in on their own dime to be part of the party to celebrate 100, and that kind of changed their view. But what really changed it was like, look, I got a paycheck for the last 10 years that I did. It's $100, but for 10 years I earned this $100. But that changed it, right? So now it's not so much work. It's like you don't get those. Well, I'll tell you, Ibn and I both do contract work for other people, and there were shows when we're like, I got work to do, man. Can we bump it to Friday? Can we bump it to next week? Can we just skip maybe this week? But once that Patreon kicked in, it was like, nope, we're here on Tuesdays, and this is part of our job. And what makes it beautiful is our job is about a game, so we get paid to play the game. Because I've been chastised other places like, you're playing a game. So I get paid to play a game. What do you get paid to do? So even though it's not a huge life-changing amount of money, the perception around it changed to where the podcast, you got to look at the long run. You know, you got to look at why you're doing what you're doing, and the people will come, and the money changes that perception.
And the point too, the thing that Charles just mentioned, it wasn't really just the money that said, oh yeah, now we're going to start doing this regularly. It was being able to say, oh, I can actually be a little bit choosier with the freelance projects I take on because I've got this to kind of offset that. I can do the ones that I enjoy, do the podcast stuff I enjoy, and the more one fills up, the less you have to do, of the things that maybe you don't enjoy so much. But don't, jump on one and just let that other trapeze swing out unattended, because you want to make sure that you kind of have the balance and maintain everything, because you could have a bad month and people could drop out of Patreon, so you want to make sure that you've got that safety net.
And real quick, 'cause I think my wife might be watching. She gets it now. She's on the show with me now. We do a show together, but for a long time she was like, I don't get it, but she does get it now. It does help that Patreon changed the game for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think for us, for Tom and I on Sword and Laser, it really enabled us to do things like come to DragonCon and not have to spend our own money, be able to buy, like actually go to events where we can interview authors, do things to improve the show, and not continually spiral down into personal debt for a passion project.
Exactly.
And I think that made a huge difference for us as well. And I know this isn't the case for everyone, because you, of course, get a lot of revenue from YouTube and Twitch and things of that nature. But for those of us who do depend on Patreon, what do we do if Patreon shuts down? At this point, we've become very dependent on these crowdfunding services to build our shows and to create our communities and to help support this work that has gone from passion project to actual job, because we have people paying us money for it, and we've promised to do things on a schedule for that. So Patreon's a small company. They've had glitches before in the past. They've had technical issues. They're growing, but we don't really know if they're going to be around forever. We'll get to questions at the end.
Okay, I just wanted to add a comment to that.
Okay.
There was another company called Subbable.
Yes.
Patreon did absorb Subbable, so
Well,
they're growing.
that's good. Yeah, it's good, but it doesn't mean everything. Lots of big companies end up going bankrupt.
I will
don't
give
get
you my
funded.
bank routing number, and you just put money right in
Well,
there.
but the thing is, we used to be able to do that. People had PayPal tip jars, and that
Like
it
I
just,
said,
Still a thing, especially on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I still have that.
Yeah.
Patreon is still going, and you can do it do the same thing through PayPal. It's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's just it doesn't work as well. You pretty much need to create a system that was similar.
It also involves trusting PayPal, which is never a good way to base your business on anything, don't they? This is a company that will happily freeze an account for no apparent reason and require essentially a long-form birth certificate and possibly your firstborn in order to unlock it. So PayPal should never, ever be the main place where you store your revenue. It's a very risky thing to do.
Yeah, you can also think of your show, like let's say Patreon were to disappear today. You could use something like Kickstarter to fund seasons of your show. That's a very common thing to say. All right, for this next 12-episode season, we're looking to raise X amount, or for this next year of the show.
but don't you feel like that might cause fatigue for the listeners?
to have to
to
do
feel
it?
like they have to one
I
up?
think it would, but you look at things like what is Will Wheaton's show on
Tabletop?
YouTube.
Tabletop?
Yeah. That's how they're doing it.
No, we're not all Will Wheaton, though.
Well, I think podcasting has been inevitable. Podcasting, when we got into it early on, lots of Wild West, lots of cutting paths. I think the world's catching up to that with Periscope and all these things. I think even if Patreon goes away, people want to go direct to the source. They don't want to subscribe to major unnamed networks here, but they want to be able to go, I want this now. That's why TiVo ruled for a long time. That's why now Netflix and Hulu are ruling. I think even if Patreon goes away, that there will be some way for the people to come. I want the question, something you brought up, Veronica, was the Patreon being able to free up that burden of personal debt and being able to do that. Don't you find that with you and Tom, or for you alone, that brought a new passion to your project? That no longer is this shadow of I'm doing everything. Now people not only love me, they're supporting me. It brings a breath of fresh air to you.
Yeah, it made it easier too, because I was able to. I edited the show for 8 years, and finally I had the opportunity to hire an editor. And that was. I still do all the posting and adding it to the blog posts and doing all the social media. I could delegate that, but I still feel a little too attached to it to be able to give up that freedom.
But you get to choose to do that instead of have to do that.
Right, but now it's like we finish the show at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I pass it off to Jacob, the editor, and then by 9 o'clock the whole thing's done. It sounds great. He does a great job. And just that little bit of having the evening kind of free to myself to play some video games or to read a book for a while or whatever. I mean, that really does kind of reinvigorate you lose that sense of like, the drudgery of having to do the thing. And even though you love it, it's still a lot of work. So I think there are ways that this is kind of changing how we view the content in a more positive light.
And I think that passes on to the audience too.
Yeah, I think the point that you made earlier was quite interesting. We're in the on-demand generation at this point where people have discovered that whatever ridiculous niche of content they want exists somewhere. They just need to find it, and if it doesn't exist, someone's willing to do it, and they'll be able to fund it, which is fantastic. And it doesn't necessarily matter what service they fund it through. The idea that is, let's say, going back to the question, if Patreon disappeared tomorrow, what would happen? Well, the question you then have to ask yourself is, have I built a loyal audience? Because the audience in whatever form is essentially your livelihood. And regardless of whether or not Patreon disappears, if they're willing to support you, they will find a way to do it. The question is, have you provided them with more than one avenue to do it? Which is why perhaps relying on Patreon purely is not necessarily a great idea for that reason. I mean, you should never put your livelihood in the hands of one company if you can avoid it. So it's always good to set up multiple forms of revenue and get your audience sort of into this habit that you're giving them a number of avenues in which they can support you, and you're essentially offering them a choice at that point. So as cruel as it sounds and as cold as it sounds, I mean, it really is about figuring out ways to monetize your audience and doing it in a way that doesn't make you sound like a dick.
Well, that's the thing. That's
Doesn't make
the
you
thing.
sound like someone who says monetizing your audience.
Exactly.
Well, here's the thing.
Do we want to talk about the whales for a moment? Yeah.
When you introduce any kind of monetary exchange, and I'm not talking about the gifts, because I've heard of podcasts where the fans just love what they do. They send gifts to them. That's one thing. But when you have this exchange, it becomes a business. And you have to go from, hopefully you're taking your show seriously, and now that it's a business, you really have to take it seriously. You have to deliver every time. And using words like monetize your audience is, they're hopefully, maybe not using the same words, but they're going, but you are selling me something. It's softer words of support and content creation, but the gist still is you have to take it serious because they're going to expect more. I mean, we have Nikolai. We have a guy on our show or who supports our show, and he's a great guy, but there's times when he's like, hey, Ibit stepped out. I can get on the microphone. We're like, no, sir. I did that. There are lines that we have set up that we love you, man. We do. And if you're watching this, we love you, Nikolai. But there's that boundaries you have to set, because it goes from being, hey, I'm a hobby podcast, or there's a new app I'm going to talk about another panel called Blab out there. Hey, we're just talking to, no, I'm doing a show, and there's all this preparation that I do for the show and this professionalism because I'm delivering it to you every week, so that when you tell them no, they get it.
I mean, there's even an ethical concern with that. I think someone referred to it as a parasocial relationship, the relationship between the content creator and the audience, in that the content creator holds a significantly larger amount of power in the relationship, and yet the audience knows more about you than you do about them. Yeah. And it's very easy, even without realizing it, to be potentially exploitative of vulnerable people, whether through online content creation. And I think if you've ever seen a particularly zealous fan base of a YouTuber or anything along those lines, and seen what happens if someone comes in and says, oh, well, I didn't like that video, and then somebody jumps them and is like, I hope you kill yourself. And you realize, whoa, okay, this person is committed beyond all bounds of reason. Did I, as a content creator, have something to do with that? It's very important to make sure the boundaries are set from the beginning. Expectations are managed, and you are engaged in a healthy relationship with your audience whereby they don't make assumptions about the relationship that you have with them.
Yeah, do you get the type of listener who says, well, no, I contribute every month, I should get to do this, or I should, you should
I
do
think
this content.
Those can just sometimes be the people that you have to say no. I mean, to block, because there are times when there's one of my other podcasts that I started is called the Renaissance Festival. podcast and Renaissance Festival music and whatnot. So we recently just started a Patreon page, and it was set up with a sponsorship level, and so we got this someone finally decided to use the sponsorship level, and the what they wanted, basically you could have 1 minute of airtime to promote stuff. So he wanted to do something for the NRA.
Oh.
And
Okay.
I'm not against guns. I'm not a fan of the NRA, but it's a political issue. The podcast is about fun. It's supposed to be about fun. This is completely unrelated. It's not. So where do you have at some point you have to draw limits and say, is that really what we want in our podcast? Do we want it to be? Do you want something that's political? I mean, if all of a sudden Trump and Hillary Clinton bought airtime in our podcast, do we want to support either of these candidates?
It depends on the size of the check.
And that's the thing, that there are always limits. I mean, some people are willing. I host the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast. I do. I am willing to have a beer sponsor. I will not have Budweiser as a sponsor for the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast because I am morally against them. So even though they own Guinness, that's a side. There's no money that they can pay that I wouldn't willing to accept. Now, give me another beer and I'm not considering.
It's important to realize your value as an endorser, because that's essentially what you're doing at that point, and your credibility is directly tied to that. So engaging with sponsorships is, of course, another way to raise money for your show as opposed to purely crowdfunding. And it's very important to accept sponsors from products and services that you yourself would actually use and can genuinely get behind in some way. Because I can tell you for a fact the audience will spot immediately if you are not actually enthusiastic about it.
This is actually an interesting topic on anyone listen to the Startup Podcast?
Yeah.
They had a recent episode that was very on this exact topic of how much is endorsement versus how much is paying paid advertiser. So it's an interesting podcast. Go check it out if you get a chance.
And that's the change in the conversation from podcast to radio, or vice versa. Is there's paid advertisements on radio, but podcasts, they expect it to be you. And even if you have an advertising slot, which I do on one of my shows, they still expect, because it's on my show, that I endorse it. And we had in Success Freaks, we had a advertiser approach us at New Media Expo, and the guy was really cool and everything was cool, and they dropped the name of the group. So before I tell you what it is, you have to do your research, because you also have to educate your audience, because the group was the Islamic Relief USA. In America, when you hear Islam, you're like, all American radio makes it bad, right? So we spent weeks vetting these guys, researching them, and then once we agreed and understood that they lined up with our principles 100%, their tagline was "Together for a Better World." Ours is "Help Others Be Awesome." It just flows. Everything worked right. We found out, they're open with their books, everything. We spent a month educating our audience about who they are and why we're choosing to let them sponsor us before we even launched it, and let that time, and we do very quick from record to publish. So there was a lot of turnaround time for our audience to do backlash. I think we actually lost some numbers, but because we believed in it, it fit with us, we decided to move forward. 'Cause it wasn't just about the money. The money was okay. It's about the relationship and how it fit with what we're doing. So you do have to be careful. Do your research on who's sponsoring you, and then make sure your audience knows who's sponsoring you so they don't get thrown off. Because you can't just take an ad and go, oh, well, it's an ad space, because they're going to think it's you. Right.
Well, more often than not, you'll find that companies that approach you want you to essentially do the ad read.
Yeah.
And they'll want you to do that because it's what's called influencer-driven marketing. It's coming from your mouth, so the assumption is that more of your audience is going to resonate with it. We went a little bit further with it, where we write the ads. And where the Co-optional Podcast is currently sponsored by Squarespace and Crunchyroll. And both of those companies asked us, can you write up some ads that you think are going to work for our audience? And we thought about it, it's like, well, this kind of marketing that Squarespace usually does, especially right now, is extremely stylish, it's very upmarket, and our audience are, of course, extremely stylish and very upmarket. we would never suggest otherwise, but it's a gaming podcast, and we're attempting to sell a very simple web development service to them, And the way that we did that was by tapping into the sort of humor that we are known for on that show, and also utilizing the characters and previous references in order to create something that wouldn't ever work on any other show, but is especially effective on ours specifically. And you'll find a lot of sponsors are going for that now.
Well, I do want to leave some time for questions towards the end, but I just want to go through the panel one last time for any tips that you may have for the audience who might be looking to get into crowdfunding, whether that be through Patreon, whether that be through Kickstarter, or tip jars, you know, making a really awesome store of swag for your audience, whatever it is. What's your advice?
Make sure it's attainable, deliverable. Like, don't promise things that you don't think you're going to be able to do. Don't promise things that are difficult that you haven't tried doing before, because it's going to stay difficult. It's going to stay harder to fulfill. Whether it's digital or physical, make sure that that's something that you can achieve and that you can promise successfully.
I'd say make sure it's something your audience wants. I've had stores with T-shirts and they don't sell, but then the Patreon does really well. And I've had places where the Patreon doesn't do really well and the store doesn't sell, but they want me to come speak at a live event. So you got to listen to your audience. And other thing to keep in mind, it's not just about your podcast. I make a good 50% of my money with the skills I learned through podcasting, going and doing it for other people. I technical produce a show. I actually work with one of the hotels downtown to come in for their big shows, do audio video, because I've done 10 years of figuring out what went wrong with audio and I can fix it. So you can reach outside the box also to bring in some money that will support your podcasting habit until it becomes a funded job.
That's a really good point that you just brought up there. You should look at podcasting or anything along those lines as an opportunity to learn new skills as well as build an audience. And I've said to anyone, whether it be someone who's asked, well, how do I start up a YouTube channel? How do I become successful on YouTube? It's like, assume that you won't. And just do it because you want to do it, and that enthusiasm will be communicated to the audience, and it may be a small audience to begin with, but don't go into it assuming that you'll be able to start up a business immediately. Do it because you want to do it. Make sure that it is reasonable and you can dedicate your free time to doing it without burning out, and hopefully you'll eventually grow to the point where you can support it full time. And when it comes to merchandise, do try and make something that someone could wear outside of DragonCon reasonably. We have some really stupid shirts, and we realized when we looked at our demographic, our demographic's 25 to 34, young professionals. They probably don't want to wear something like this. Listen to the audience, try and figure out something that is stylish yet referential. I tend to find that people love this idea that they're part of some secret club or secret society where someone might recognize what their T-shirt means, but someone that has no idea still thinks, oh, that's a cool looking T-shirt. Why not?
Yeah. I just reiterate, I think most what everyone else said. I mean, as far as, you do it for the love of it. And if sometimes, whatever you decide you're going to do, people might not want to be a part of it, or you'll have too small an audience to actually be patronized. In that case, you might just either find a new one that will actually make you money if that's your ultimate, to quit your day job and become a podcaster, or you just change your perception and you say, I'm just not gonna make money. That's okay. I have a podcast that I do for my fans of my music. And originally I was trying to do what y'all were doing, somebody was over there doing that, which was to, hey, what do you want to hear? What can I do to build, And then I realized all of a sudden that my audience are people like me. We're introverts. They have no interest in really communicating. We just want to listen and enjoy and have fun. And therefore, I stopped asking all the questions and decided to focus on what the show's all about. Trying to create a show that is interesting for me, as well as what I think my audience might enjoy it, and hopefully make it as best I can, and just go from there. Build it.
Great advice. Thank you. If you guys have questions, the microphone is right here. If you want to line up, huddle awkwardly in this corner over here, would be great.
We're live streaming, so we want to get you in the picture if we can. So we're going to pull up.
I don't trust this dude behind you, Dunaway.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So, marketing your Patreon as opposed to, say, marketing a Kickstarter is pretty straightforward how you market a Kickstarter. You talk about it all the time. But I notice, especially like on Twitter, social media, Patreon seems to be a little bit low-key. Mm-hmm. So how do you go about spreading the word that you have a Patreon without kind of upsetting your audience?
Yeah, I kind of think I don't promote it enough, frankly. I mean, we have
I've always been a big fan of. Even when I started the Song Henge, my goal was. I have several things, three things I think I come up with. Number one is you talk about it. Obviously, you mention it as long as you say, by the way, please support us on Patreon. Just cost you $1 an episode or $5 a month or whatever it is, and that's all it requires. The second thing, what I've really love, and it's probably is thanking people in the show. So my latest people, I'm going to thank David and Joe and Sam, our latest patrons over on Patreon, and that sort of just gives you a reason. You can do it. Then you can do it on Facebook and Twitter, and you don't really have to do, you don't have to sell. They want to be part of the club because they keep hearing about these people who are doing it. So there's actually two items, but those are really good ones.
Never underestimate the power of a name. You're calling out their name.
Yeah. It's hugely effective for a lot of very successful Twitch streamers, for instance, to the point where some have even taken to setting up a text-to-speech application. I would not recommend doing this at all, by the way, especially considering it's, for the most part, unvetted, where it will read out the name of the donor, and then it will read out their custom message. Some of it ends up being absolutely awful, but the only reason people still do it is because it works. It is a case of name recognition and exploiting, I suppose, people's vanity to some degree.
Oh yeah.
It really is a little bit about that, but it's also about thanking people that are supporting you. And it seems like such a minor thing, but it's one of the most effective drivers when it comes to donations, subscriptions, and crowdfunding via Twitch. And it certainly works in other platforms as well.
Can I do one more really quick? Sure. Another thing and this is slightly off the Patreon, getting the new Patreon, but it still I think is effective. Is if you have a voicemail or you can read custom comments from people in the show. So again, it's the same thing of building a relationship. So you hear where people are listening to your podcast, and you share that information. You can tie that in a little bit with Patreon, whether they are patrons or not. But it's a good way of building, the passion for the show. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, there's a Tom Merritt. We keep bringing Tom Merritt up because he's great with this sort of thing. But he's got in DTNS an audio thing that his patrons record for him that say, I'm a supporter of Daily Tech News Show, and you can be too. Go da. And it's a great way to.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start doing that for Sword and Laser too.
We're stealing.
I think everybody in this room is going to start doing
It's the new normal now.
Sorry, Tom, if you're listening.
I like to talk about what you're going to get. The biggest thing that we do from the helicarrier is we'll be talking about something in the game, and we'll see the chat room light up, and they abbreviate it. It's called the Ages Only Lounge, which is, I never thought it had, but it's AOL. So that brings all its own jokes, right? But they start putting AOL in there and this and that, and people start asking, what is this? And we don't even have to stop in the show. They will answer them. But then we'll see that moment and say, and if you really want to be part of this community, and that's what you're getting is the community, come over to Patreon. We don't talk about the money levels. We don't talk about what I'll say you get to control what you do. Every once in a while we'll say education. We talk about what you get as part of the community. And now I think we're going to have people say I'm a part of the group and record that for us. That's awesome.
Yeah, to take something that you mentioned earlier about the private Facebook group that you said you'd set up.
That is so easy. And people want that so much.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how effective it can be that when you set up a system where your audience is effectively marketing for you. We do our podcast live via Twitch, and Twitch has the means to lock the chat behind a subscription wall, essentially. And that sounds awful until you realize the average Twitch chat. And then you suddenly realize not only is this a service for those who are paying to access the chat and be part of that community, it's a service for those who are not, because our chat doesn't make you want to rip your eyeballs out, which is even better. And every line posted in that chat is effectively marketing one of your subscription benefits without you having to effectively lift a finger. Yeah. And it benefits the show. It's a win-win all around.
Great. Go ahead.
So in terms of getting your audience to understand the why behind why they're giving you money, like how do you communicate that to them? Because there's always going to be questions out there like, am I funding your baby? And like in my head, the answer to that is Yes, you
In a
are.
way, yeah.
If this baby has to eat, and if I'm not making money off this, it's going to be off somewhere else.
Right.
And that's not going to go towards the podcast. So how do you communicate that?
That's
to
a
your
great.
audience?
That's a really good question. Yeah, don't just tell them what they're going to get when they're a patron. Tell them how you're using
you're
it.
getting.
We talked about on From the Helicarrier. We're using it for better servers, for better cameras. We actually got a camera for our third host using Patreon. And when they see those results, and when they see that, oh, I'm not only getting this extra access to the Agents Only Lounge, I'm not only getting these extra cards, I'm actually, my money is going to that thing that is making the show better for me.
Improving the show. Yeah, I think the transparency is really good and helpful, and yeah, because we say on the show, you know, we're able to go to these conventions to talk to authors, to interview them for the show. We're able to. I bought a new microphone because I hadn't bought a new microphone in 8 years, and it was time for an upgrade. You know, thank you guys for allowing us to do that. So stuff like that, I think they appreciate hearing that they are having an active impact on the quality of what
and
they're
there's
listening
a
to.
lot that goes in creating podcasts. So I did a analysis trying to figure out how much money it costs to make my podcast, and throwing a little bit for my own time, for bare minimum audio editing, and it turned out it was like with mostly server problems that I was having, $700 a month, and that's not cheap.
That's a lot, yeah.
So I mean, I got all that, most of that stuff set up, made some changes, and now my patrons cover all that. And now that going past that is the scary part, because then you have to say, and you're paying me, which no one really wants to say.
Well, think about why you give, or why you want to see somebody open a gift. You want to see the excitement that they have, the appreciation, or many times I personally give things to somebody because I want to know that they're getting great use out of it, and just knowing that it did something for them. And so doing the name thing, saying thank you, being clear about what you're using the money for, they just love that. I mean, they love knowing that they helped you be better and bring this more thing and just a part of your life. And that's what it is. You become that person to them. It's the inner circle, right? You're a part. They're a part of your life, and now you're a part of theirs because now they're part of this clubhouse that nobody else is part of.
Yeah. And if you're using it to fund the baby, then just tell them that it's keeping the baby from screaming in the background while you're recording a show because it's hungry.
Paying for daycare.
I've got a bit of a dissenting opinion on that, and that's just really based on the kind of content that we create. But it's different depending on which form of crowdfunding we use and what the product is. The difference between what we do with co-optional animated versus the subscription system to Twitch is really quite staggering. The Patreon funding for co-optional animated allows for the show to take as long as it takes to edit together, and we gain new patrons through that, usually because the increase in quality becomes obvious, and the comments are made by the community themselves saying, wow, the amount of detail that's in this scene that wasn't in it previously when we were forcing one out every week when the guy just didn't have the time to do it. And yet with the Twitch support, it's kind of a very cold mechanical thing in the sense that we don't promise anything other than the service that we offer, and the list of benefits that you get is front loaded when you go to subscribe. And our relationship with our audience is very simple. This money is getting you these benefits, and we do try to keep those benefits tangible and ensure that they are really helping. And I mean, I don't think there's any right way to do it necessarily. It really depends on your audience, the size of your audience, and the kind of content that you're creating. And there's no magic bullet that will get you success every time. But as people have said on this panel over and over again, for God's sake, take feedback, listen to your audience, look at your metrics, something that people frequently don't do, because your metrics give you a fairly vague impression, but an important impression of the opinion of your overall audience as a whole, as opposed to just a single person. And you'd be surprised how often that actually conflicts with an opinion that you see online that you can take to heart and say, wow, this guy's representative of my audience. This guy must be saying what everybody else is thinking, and sometimes they're not. And you've got to be extremely careful to balance that feedback with the data that you have on hand.
Yeah, be careful of the vocal minority.
Oh, yes.
Is a big one. Go ahead.
Thank you guys for doing this, by the way. So my podcast has been kind of stagnant around 10,000 listeners, and I was wondering if you guys had any tips for growing your audience.
I'm sorry. Poor you.
So tell us.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, is the goal to have more listeners, or the goal to
Just the interactivity is a little low. There's a
Okay.
good amount of listeners and downloads, but not a lot of interactivity.
What
You know,
kinds of things are you doing currently in your show that involve the listeners? Like, are you doing like
we have a voicemail box.
Okay.
We have a Facebook and comments on the website and things like that. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem to get much action. So I was wondering if there was any.
I have a recent change that I picked up from some podcast. I don't remember which one, but what I have changed is I specifically asked, since I have a section where I voicemail. You know, I get to ask for, you know, I want to hear your feedback, so come drop me a line. You know, here's the number, or you can email, or you know, all the methods. But one of the things that I did recently was tell me where you are listening to the podcast. That little thing, all of a sudden people I got, you know, 20 new voicemails from people saying, let me tell you, I got to, you know, I'm so send a picture where you're at listening to it.
Unless you're listening in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Page on the
and that's made a big difference to the number of people who have actually interacted.
Yeah.
But it's a great one, not necessarily to grow your listening.
And sometimes you have to tell your audience, go tell other people. You know, our game has a massive community around it. We were originally able just to tap into a small part of it, and I told people, go tell the other groups. And all of a sudden we're added into a bajillion groups around what we do, and we're the celebrities in that group because, like, oh my God, you can do a show, y'all do the news on it. So we started using that. So go tell people in other groups when they start fighting and when they start arguing these points. We covered this last week, and we did it in a be nice kind of way because I get to work Dalton in every chance I get. But we told them be nice and all that, and they did. And all of a sudden our numbers started growing, the word started spreading some. And you got to worry about their niche. I mean, I don't know what your podcast is. Our niche is never going to get that big because it's one game. Game goes away, the show goes away. So we're actually expanding that so it won't happen. But it also, your niche might have a ceiling, but then are you telling your audience just blatantly, go tell other people? Sometimes you got to be a church. You got to say, go save the people, tell them about my content, and come listen. And that, you know, people laugh, but that will, one person out of 5 will do that, and then all of a sudden it starts snowballing.
Cross promotion is extremely important. The way that we built our show a few years ago is we designed it around a 4th rotating guest slot. So we have 3 pillars for the show essentially, and that 4th slot changes every week. And we started off taking people from our YouTube multi-channel network, and we eventually expanded out as the show grew, and eventually we started bringing in people like Felicia Day and people from other areas that were related to what we did. We made sure they knew something about video games, because it gets very awkward if they don't. But the cross-promotional value of tapping into other people's audiences can't be overstated. It's incredibly important, and if you're consistently doing it, then you are building your audience sort of off the back of other people's audiences. You're helping them, and the larger you grow, the more important guests you're able to bring on, because they view it as an opportunity for them to do the same to you. It's very much a quid pro quo kind of situation. They want your audience, you want their audience, and it's totally fine for you to do that, because more often than not you both end up getting an extra person, which is just wonderful. So what niche exactly is what is your podcast about?
Well, it's on The Walking Dead, so we have plenty of material to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, you.
I mean, the only thing I was going to suggest then is that obviously you're very heavily involved in the fan community for that particular thing, and there's a lot of third-party created content surrounding that particular subject. So the best thing you can do is to get those people involved in some way. If someone has just done something very, very cool, why not bring them on for an interview? You bring their fan base along with them, and you also raise the profile of your show as a center of that particular community, as somewhere that people that want to know everything about Walking Dead and want to be in touch every week with what's currently going on with the fandom, they want to come to your show because you've proven that you can bring in these interesting guests that are also relevant to their interests.
That's go ahead.
Another thing is events. If you can create an event, and that event can be as big as the release of a new episode. A very important episode, or the start of the season or something, and where you do a lot of promotion for that episode. Or it could be as simple as going to saying, I need everyone on September 3rd to go to iTunes and post a review on that day, because that will shoot your numbers up, and a little bit on the gaming the system type thing, but it somewhat will work. But it also will develop the popularity. It gives you a reason for people to get excited and say, I want to be a part of this event. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of being the expert in the field, even if you're in a rather small niche. Because with Sword and Laser, we're a sci-fi fantasy podcast, but we're also a book club, so that kind of narrows it down to people who we do news and stuff at the top of the show, and then wrap it up with the book club. So if you don't want to participate in that portion, you don't have to. But we've gotten to the point now, after 8 years, of being the show that authors come to ask to be on, because they're just we've become this voice in the community. And I mean, with 10,000 people, that's amazing. You're part of a really popular
Trust me,
fandom.
I'm not knocking it. I
No,
realize
it's great. But you can be the Walking Dead podcast, even if it's unofficial.
Well, if you want to fight the Nerdist for it.
Well, right. But get someone on. I mean, there's
probably the best way.
you have this huge potential audience that you can tap into. You just have to start cross promoting. I think is probably a really great find other fandom communities, do stuff like that, crossover episodes, and
Cool.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We have just enough time, I think, for. Thank you. I was on it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, I was wondering, do you see crowdfunding still being a viable thing 5-10 years down the road? And if so, how much of an impact on traditional cable television and things like that do you see it having?
Yes. When I was at New Media Expo, I met Jenna Edwards, who was in the last episode of Buffy. She was one of the many Slayers that were made in the last episode, whatever.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert from the 1990s.
10 years ago.
I know that. That's the joke.
But she was actually talking about, as a woman in new media, what she's been doing. And one of her first projects out of the gate was crowdfunded, and then ended up being sold to Hulu as a Hulu original, which is rare, right? That's not how you're going to necessarily make it. But that's why I say unequivocally yes, because who here doesn't want to be a part of something? I mean, it's one of the reasons why you come to DragonCon. It's a big, huge community. If you knew that you could have an influence on the show Arrow or on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or you fill in the blank, you probably would shut up and take my money, because I want to know that I'm a part of that and I have some influence. So that's why I think crowdfunding will absolutely, especially with Hulu, Netflix, and original content, and podcasting is not back. Podcasting's been here for 10 freaking years, and with blood, sweat, and tears made it happen. And now that we get to sit on a panel as professionals who do it, it's only going to go forward.
Yeah, it's become a point where we did a site for about 5 or 6 years called WoW Radio, which was from 2005 to 2010. And this was at the time when making money via podcast was extremely difficult. We would have to go out and try and find sponsors, and some of the deals that we made back then are for peanuts, essentially. They maybe ran the server costs at most. Nobody got paid. At this point, it is much easier, whether it be to acquire a crowdfunded model or whether it be to do it through sponsorship, simply because the audience continues to grow, because people have started to realize that maybe I don't have to go to traditional media in order to get exactly what I want. Maybe I don't have to settle for something that's kind of what I want, because there will be somebody that's doing exactly what I want. And if they're not, I can make that and I can get it funded. Whether or not cable is going to catch up to that, the old media is extremely slow when it comes to adapting to these kind of changes, which is why, of course, it's losing subscribers and not gaining it at the moment. For me, with YouTube in particular, we've always had the attitude that why would we attempt to emulate what cable is doing? We've already surpassed them. We are doing something different now that we've proven works. So continue to sort of pioneer and forge ahead there rather than looking at what they're doing. And yeah, maybe they do catch up or maybe they die off, but that's how media works, and something will always come along to replace it, and maybe we're that.
All right, time for the last question. Hi.
There was that small talk about the users, the small section of users that would defend their the creators to the death.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the creators that kind of exploit them to have their personal little army to just go into the comment sections of all these videos and just spam it?
That's not a great way of doing business at all. It's something you have to become increasingly aware of as you grow in presence. Even something as simple as your Twitter account. the more followers you get, the more careful you realize you have to be in whatever you say. Even, for instance, an at reply or a mention can be weaponized in some way if you're not incredibly careful about it. And of course, encouraging people to be fanatics, essentially, as part of a fandom of your own is, I think, one of the most damaging things that you could do. And I think it's also one of the main reasons why the internet is as hostile a place as it currently is, because there are plenty of people who are either willing to do that or don't even realize that they're doing it. They wield a huge amount of power over a huge number of people, but they actually have very little control over what they do, and it only takes a little nudge in the wrong direction for those people to go and do something incredibly unpleasant.
Yeah.
I think it's what we've talked about this entire hour of being transparent about what you're doing, being clear about why you do it. And when it comes down to community, if you're not constantly setting the standard of this is how we do this, and I've gotten so many memes sent to me about Roadhouse because I did say over and over again, be nice, because the internet is a not nice place, especially when it comes to gaming. So I was just constantly I was hitting it constantly, but that's how we set the standard. So when we had this group and somebody came in and tried to troll the group that he paid to come in and troll us. Okay, we took your money, it's fine. Then immediately the group did not lash back. They just went, dude, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And before I could even talk to him, he took himself out of the group because he realized nothing was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's to the Army question. If you're leading an army, which you are, at 5 listeners, at 10 listeners, at 10,000 listeners, I'll take that. You as long as you are who you are and you're leading it with a purpose, goes along with him talking about being careful, is they will follow you. So if you lash out, they're going to go crazy.
Yep.
And if you're nice, the trolls are not going to follow. They're not going to stay.
Yeah, support the fans, don't support the fanatics.
And he's actually had to talk me down when we've had some trolls and like, should I embrace? Because that's kind of my method is like, no, none shall pass, man. You come up pushing my buttons, I will smack you down. And he's like, no, don't feed the troll. That was a lot. Don't feed the trolls. I'm like, that's kind of funny. I got this image in my head. Okay, I can calm down now and not do that. And then when we do every once in a while engage some kind of behavior like that, it's on this higher level of, hey, you can have your opinion, but this is exactly why we do what we do with these people. It wasn't even against us. It was somebody who was associated with our show. It's like, this is why we love his videos. And we just gave this breakdown that you could not argue with. They went away. So you do have to be careful. Just be who you are.
Yeah. Try and find yourself some kind of way to vent that doesn't involve doing it publicly to 500,000 people.
Yeah.
Something I've learned over the past couple of years. Whether it be set up a little group with people that are in the same line of work as you, other podcasters that you can just vent to. We have a group of about 30 major YouTube channels that many of you may have heard of them, and I'm not going to tell you who, but that's the place where we yell about awful people in our audience, in a place that is safe and hidden away, where other people can come along and they know exactly what you're going through because they're going through exactly the same thing, and you don't have to vent it publicly, because that is a sign of weakness that I can tell you is blood in the water. The sharks will come if you do that. A personal experience happened time and time again, so you try and make a support system for yourself.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today, and thank you to our panel for the discussion.
And hey, if you want to take some pictures and Twitter them out at House of the Bear, I'd love pictures of me being awesome.
Okay, and please, if you get an opportunity, rate this panel in the app if you got something out of it, if you enjoyed it today, so we can do something like it again next year. And the next, I have more things to cover, man. I'm moderating. Download the app and also...